Hello, I'm Kay. I'm here to help you navigate the business side of art in a way that actually makes sense. We'll decode the business lingo, unravel marketing mysteries, and pave a clear path for you to thrive both creatively and financially. So grab your favorite brush, a fresh canvas, or just a cup of coffee. Welcome to the Artist's Guide to Business. Okay, so picture this. You're in the studio surrounded by half-finished projects. Your inbox has 3 potential client emails that you haven't necessarily answered. There's that online course you bought 3 months ago with only your first module completed. And you're feeling like a blend of creative excitement about what's ahead, but also mixed with a nagging sense that you're always falling behind. So does that sound familiar? Here's what a lot of artists miss. The secret to moving forward confidently. It isn't always about planning your next big move or scheduling out your next month. A lot of times it's actually about understanding the ground that you have already covered. So I spent years chasing that next opportunity, like always looking forward, trying that next technique or the next marketing strategy. And again, it was just like always forward facing and never looking back. And do you know what happened? I kept making the same mistakes. I wouldn't wrap things up. And then for a long time, I would ignore what was working, like, for example, pet portraits that consistently paid my rent, brought in good revenue, while I pursued what I thought I should be doing. And it wasn't until I developed a more systematic approach to reviewing my business quarterly that everything took a slower, more diligent, and kind of intentional path. It didn't just change my revenue, and revenue fluctuates no matter what, but it made it more manageable, but it really also changed like my sense of accomplishment and most importantly, my clarity about what actually deserves my time and energy going forward. And that's really significant for anyone in business, especially if you are an artist in business or a solopreneur type of business owner. So the quarterly review, I know it sounds really corporate, but it's not just a corporate exercise to like try to force into your creative life. A lot of times it's this piece that will really allow your artistic practice to become more sustainable, intentional, aligned with who you really are. So let's dive in and talk about how it works. First of all, the reason I love quarterly planning so much, they say things like what you measure changes. So what that means though, is that what you pay attention to, what you look at on a regular basis or a semi-regular basis are the things that you're going to be changing in your life. If you never look at something, if you never pay attention to it, it will always operate the way it currently operates for all of time without any sort of outside forces on it. The other thing that I really love about looking back on your business or doing any sort of reflection work is that once you do it a few times, you can start to see some patterns. And those patterns can really unlock your business or unlock understanding of your business. And you'll start to see where you tend to put your focus when you're stressed, or maybe some habits that you have that are not benefiting your business. Doing quarterly reviews or reflections. It's really kind of hard for artists to do this kind of stuff, mainly because there's a million other things I think we'd rather be doing, but also a million other things that we feel urgency for. If we have any sort of client work, if we have art projects that we're working on, if we have emails we need to respond to, social media that we feel like we need to make, all of these things have a sense of urgency and accountability to them. And so when it comes to things like stepping back from your business and working or reflecting on it, looking at all the measurements, all of that kind of things, it really feels like there's no consequence to not doing it. So it's easy to put off. Can you guys relate to that? If you can, just admit it to yourself. It's no problem. But do acknowledge, like, how much easier do you find it to do work when there's another person involved, or you're trying to satisfy someone else versus just yourself? So before we dive in too much farther, I do want to talk to you about the hidden cost of not reviewing your business ever. The first one's actually maybe going to surprise you. And that is If you never review your business, if you never look backwards and see where you've been, you actually have more potential to burn out. Having a constant forward facing orientation, always looking for the next thing, always trying to think of what to do next and what's the next goal, what's the next accomplishment, just continually looking forward will actually lead you faster to burnout than anything else because you never get yourself a chance to just appreciate what you've done, see the work you've done, and know that you are accomplishing things step by step. When you don't take that time to review or reflect, you kind of only think about everything you have not yet done versus everything you have done. And so that can be a really significant or really important piece of the puzzle. I find my brain works in such a way that I actually have to do reflections weekly every Friday about what I've done. But a quarterly reflection is bigger, more data and stuff. We'll get into it. The next reason or the next thing to think about that is a consequence of never reflecting on your business, and this one's counterintuitive, but you might actually end up missing what's really working in your business. So our human brains always like to focus on the negative. They want to focus on the problems, and it's totally normal. Our brains do that because they're trying to keep us safe. And so if they think something's not working, if they think there's a problem, our brains clue into that as a threat to our survival. They don't know. Our brains don't totally understand the world we're living in. I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist, but that's what I've gathered. So anyway, our brains like to focus on those big lights flashing, hey, this one thing didn't work the way I wanted, or this, traffic, like social media account's not working the way I want it. So let me focus all my attention there. When you look back on your last 90 days or the quarter of the year, you have a chance to really be more objective and to really see what's going on in your business. And sometimes you'll see, oh, wow, this thing is working really well, and I didn't even notice it. One of those examples is often overlooking a reliable revenue source because it's easy or it just flows. So again, it doesn't set off any of those alarm bells in your brain. That's the kind of thing we want to clue in on and then hopefully double down on, because creating those easy revenue sources for your business are amazing. It's really positive. It's a really good thing to be able to look back in the last 90 days and not just say, okay, where were the problems? Where were the shortcomings? But to say, okay, what was easy and what was working? And then to ask yourself, how do I double down on it? How do I make that even better? That's going to take you so much farther. Okay, then another unintended consequence of not doing a quarterly reflection in your business or ever looking back on it is that you will have perpetually unhelpful patterns. So, for example, for myself, I am very good at setting completely unrealistic expectations about my energy, my time, and about the speed at which projects will get finished. I often overestimate my ability to perform at 100%, and I underestimate the amount of time literally everything takes to get done. What originally happened is when I would do that, I would create all this extra pressure on myself that would lead to paralysis. I would disappoint myself constantly because I'd be like, oh, I didn't hit that goal. I didn't hit that deadline, da 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 da, and I would just feel this kind of sense of, disappointment, but also a little bit of like lacking trust in myself. But then when I noticed it by reflecting and looking back and really noticing that it's actually just a pattern and not just that I'm bad or poorly, or showing up poorly or whatever. But I noticed that it was a pattern specifically that if I put too much pressure on my deadlines, on myself, on all of it, then I actually get into paralysis and I don't let things flow and I don't get things done as well as when I sort of am more relaxed about that. And so it helped me to realize, hey, this is a behavior and a pattern that I continually do in my business. And it's not helping me at all. It's definitely not helping me in my emotional well-being or sense of self either. And so by catching it and seeing like, okay, I did this with a project in January, I did it with one in February, and I did it with one in March. Well, hey, you know what? from now on, instead of just overwhelming my system or putting these really intense deadlines on myself, I'm going to always know I'll plan everything out and then I'm going to reduce my expectations by about 40%. And that will help me actually move forward. So that's a personal, perpetual unhelpful pattern. Yours might be anything. Scrolling social media for 4 hours every day, or what are some patterns that you start seeing in your business and in your life? You'll see them when you start really looking back on the last few months. And are you perpetually late on projects? Are you having a really hard time responding to client emails or potential clients? Are you spending the best part of your working time, like if you have the most energy in the morning, do you find yourself using that energy to do stuff that's less important than the really important work of your art business, which might be your art? It's like, what are the patterns that are emerging that you're saying, oh, okay, hold on, that's not quite what I should be doing? And so that it just helps you to see it really sort of neutrally when you're not in the moment and when it's not affecting your life right then and there. So now that you kind of understand the consequences of doing a quarterly review in your business, let's talk about some of the key areas. Like, what does it look like to look back on your business and your life for the last 3 months, and how can we go about doing this? So the first thing that maybe is the most obvious thing, you want to look at your revenue and sales. Which of your products actually sold, or your services, which ones actually sold? What was the revenue generated by that specific product type? Or if you have multiple products, how much did each of them bring in? How many new clients or customers did you acquire? These kind of numbers are really helpful for you to start assessing, again, what's working in your business and what's not. Of course, it's not always like black and white. You can't just say, oh, well, I didn't sell any of these, therefore it's nothing. That's not how it works. But you can start to you want this sense of ownership over all of these things. And revenue is tough because sometimes we set goals and we don't quite reach them, and that's okay. That's the other piece of this. We want to be able to look at our businesses from a really neutral perspective. And when we're in it, when we're running it, when we're day after day chasing these sales and doing our best to live our dream, it can be really challenging to stay neutral. So when you set time aside and actually pull back and then you say, all right, let's speak honestly about the numbers from the last month or the last 3 months, it gives you enough time to show again some patterns and to see a big amount of things happening, but also enough time to be neutral about it. I mean, you may not have the same emotional reaction to your sales in January when you're in March or April, okay? The other numbers you want to look at is expenses. What are your profit margins? How much money did you spend on software, on actual art products or supplies? And at the same time, if you have a product that's selling really well, but it costs you, 60% of what you're selling it for to make, that's something to pay attention to. So you want to also analyze how much profit you're making off of each thing you're selling. Get really clear on those numbers that matter for your business. Are you partnering with a gallery? Are they taking a percent? What percent are they getting? So if you sold a bunch of work in a gallery January, February, and March, it's good to know how much of that revenue is landing to you and how much is going to the gallery, right? Like, these are good things to know. It doesn't mean one thing or the other, just we want to know. All right, so the next thing you could really pay attention to for, metrics or things to look at as far as your quarterly review analysis would be your traffic and visibility. So we have sales, right? So we sell products or services, but then to make those sales, we have to have leads, which means we have to have traffic, we have to have visibility, we have to have people visiting our website, visiting our social media, all of that. So you want to take some time to go through your website analytics. How many people came to your landing pages? How many people went through your sales pages? Where were they coming from? That's so valuable if you can get that information. Were they coming from your Instagram? Did they come from your social, like your Facebook? Was it through your email list? Like, how did the people who interacted with you and your work get to you and your work? Where did they come from? And what are the numbers? Because conversion rates tell us a lot. So if you have a landing page, or if you have a website shop page and you had 1,000 people come to it last month and not a single one bought, that's really important information, because that tells you that there's some sort of misalignment or there's a missing step, or it just kind of starts to inform you that, hey, 1,000 people looked at this product and not one of them bought, or 1,000 people came to this page and not a single person got on my email newsletter, right? We want to know kind of these numbers. And then we can use that also to start identifying again where we should lean into. Is your traffic coming from your Facebook? Then lean into it. If it's coming from Instagram, great. Knowing where these numbers and this traffic is coming from is really important. That's all there is to it. And your visibility, did you do anything in the last quarter that really increased your visibility? Were you a guest on a podcast? Did you go to a market that you hadn't gone to before and you shared your work with a bunch of people? All these kind of fun things tell you what the health is of your business. We need sales, and to get sales, we need traffic and visibility. And another thing I like to really consider, although it's a little bit more vague, but some people actually track it. How many conversations and connections did you build over the last 3 months? In the last 90 days, did you reach out to any of your peers? Did you make a collaboration plan with someone else who's in your industry? Think about those kind of efforts as well, because those can be very valuable. And if you notice they're missing, you can kind of plan for it. Like, I got to make sure I go to events where there's other artists, or I need to make sure I text that person when I think of them, which I guess moves into personal. But conversations and connections are such a strong root for your business and for sales. And so if you're not having any conversations, if you're not connecting with anyone, that's important information to know. Networking, things like that. All right. And let's talk about systems and workflows. So if you look back on the last 90 days, where was, really like easy productivity? What things were really easy and flowing well versus where did you feel stuck or overwhelmed? Were there things that you constantly sort of procrastinated on or put off? Because if there's something in your business flow that you put off or you procrastinate on, or you just leave it to tomorrow literally every single day, that sometimes is actually just a systems problem. And it means that you need to figure out your workflow around that task. I myself have had historically a very hard time sending emails, replying to emails, all of that. I get stuck in perfectionism and it comes out in emails, which is really strange. But I've started to notice that is directly connected to my systems of energy management. It sounds so weird, but it's like if I let myself burn at both ends every single day from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., it is so hard for me to engage with clients or potential clients through email because I am so worn out. So now I've started implementing a day that is more relaxed, and it's more about engaging and having high energy and letting myself rest around those conversations. So it's a workflow and it's a system. It's a little bit vague, but that's how I roll. I try things like make sure to send reply emails every morning from whatever, or every afternoon or whatever. But my days are too varied for that. There are some days where I do really, really intense, deep work, and those are not the days for emails, So you have to kind of notice where things are falling apart. And then if you can notice that there's something that is continually not working, that means there's a system or a workflow that could be changed and improved upon. Maybe there's other, administrative tasks or communication systems, anything like that. And then another thing to look at, what were your goals and your expectations for the last 90 days? And how did you do? What did you accomplish versus what you had planned? How realistic were your timelines? What kind of challenges came up? That can be very useful information moving forward. Not because we want to analyze it and figure out how to never have those challenges again, because life is complicated and you're in this business for the long run. So you will end up with complications. You will end up with challenges. How do we address them? How did they appear in the last 90 days? how did they kind of, because you don't know until you know. You don't know until you're in there that you were going to have a specific challenge. So being aware of them helps you to better prepare or plan for them in the future. Even if it's not, super literal, it still can just be important to know it or notice it. Okay, and then as far as goals and expectations, were there some areas you overcommitted? Did you say yes to too many things? Did you say no to too many things? Were there projects that were delivered with satisfaction versus stress, etc.? Just what kind of was the hope for last month or the last 3 months, and where did you land? My first quarter plan for the Artist's Guide to Business was so far off reality. It's not even funny. And I learned so much just by completely missing every deadline I had. And what I learned wasn't, "Oh, you need to do better," as far as like, make sure you get up at 6 a.m. and exercise and do all the whatevers. It's not that. It was more a sense of, oh, you really overestimate how much you can get done. And then you disappoint yourself when you don't get it done. And then that leads to, emotions that actually slow you down even more. Right. So I realized that that was a big thing this last 3 months, these last 90 days. That's my personal thing. Yeah. That's kind of, I think for a lot of folks, goals and expectations that are not completed can really leave feeling like, oh, I didn't do a good job. But I want you to look at why. Right? Sometimes maybe it shouldn't be a goal anymore. Or maybe the expectation that you were going to do this thing was too much. Maybe it's time to let some of that stuff go. Maybe you didn't do it because it wasn't actually important for your business or it didn't actually end up mattering. All of these are very good insights to have in your business. So that's why we want to do it. And so how you approach this review or the quarterly review, it's all about a mindset when you go into it. Personally, I say give yourself a day where you have a lot of energy and you feel kind of upbeat. Like you might plan a day around it, give yourself some good breakfast, light a candle. I don't know, just approach it with a sort of upbeat, positive mindset because you're going to want to do your best to keep your emotions neutral during all of this. When you're looking back over those numbers or the missed goals or the accomplished goals, all of that, neutrality is going to really help you to see the truth of your business. Once you start bringing in disappointment or guilt or any of it, you might start to lose sight of what really is important in what you're looking at and analyzing. Not to say none of this is emotional, it totally is, but this is a chance for you to step away from the emotions of it, if that makes sense. It's a container. It's your quarterly review, your chance to kind of pull yourself back from the business, pull yourself back from all of the dreams and all of that, and just really take a wide view of it all. Because business really does, like, it includes hard work, it includes persistent, you need to show up, you need to try and try again. But it's also about luck a little bit and timing and circumstances. Like, did the product you happen to create this month, did it find its audience? Was it on point? Were people feeling ready to spend on it? Like, this is all true for art as well as any other business. And so you want to just continually show up. And then at some point, that luck is going to come into place. So it means that we want to really be neutral about how we're showing up and looking at how we're showing up so that we can continue to do it for the long term. Because, the more you show up, the more chances you have to get lucky, honestly. And then, it's always really good for us as artists and business owners to have an opportunity to separate our business outcomes from our sense of personal worth. And this is huge for a lot of us. But the more you interact with this kind of data, the more you take this analytical perspective on it, the more you allow your self-worth to exist around that data and separate from it. At first, you might notice emotions, you might get a little bit triggered, but every time you review your business in a way like this, you increase your capacity for discomfort or for the honest truth. And so you can really grow that ability over time and grow that separation between yourself and the business. Yeah. And it's just another way to help you build that resilience, because again, we want you doing this for a long time. I don't want you in these careers for 3 years or 2 years. I want you in them for 15. It's going to be, long and slow sometimes, but practices like that really help build that sense of resilience, keeping you focused on what matters. For me personally, I'm someone who has ADHD, and doing these kind of reflections really helps me to see what I have actually accomplished. Because in my mind, the only day that has ever existed is today. So it can be really hard for me to know that I've been doing anything. And if the results are not current and present in my hand, then I feel like I've probably done nothing. But if I look at the back, if I look at it's reassuring, and it helps me understand where I have been and where I am now, and to almost celebrate that, honestly. So if you have any sort of neurodivergent traits, this review is also another way to work with that. Okay. Yeah. And it's also a way to, I don't know, to set a clear marker in time. Time is so fluid. It just goes on and on. What do they say? Like, the days are long, but the years are short. So when you do these kind of quarterly reviews, that's 4 check-in points every year where you can really you can really clearly see what has been going on for you in your business. And that is such great information to have, especially if you do an annual review. You'll be able to say, wow, I really see how once I started putting more energy into pet portraits, I started selling more pet portraits. Or I see that when I started consistently sending my emails from my email list, those connections and those conversations increased a lot, and it led to more commissions or more sales. So those are the kind of patterns, the energy in and the results out. We want to see why and what's working and how it's happening. All right. One of the favorite things I've been doing this year, which is new for me, it's called closing loops. So I just want to tell you guys about what is closing a loop. First of all, identifying what am I talking about when I say a loop? I'm talking about like an open mental loop. So it's a task that is lingering in the back of your mind. It never gets done. It builds guilt and shame and all that stuff around procrastinated tasks, or it just is like that. Maybe it's not even that deep, it's just like, ugh, I still haven't done that thing and I need to do that thing. Ugh. And you think about it time and time and time and time again, and it's never the right time somehow. Open loops like that, they drain your mental energy so much. And so I've started instituting these loop closing weeks. And when I first did it, it was because I was like completely overwhelmed with the amount of things I had not finished. But now I do them more regularly, and it actually helps a lot. But I forget. You forget that this is something that you should do or want to do. And it's the same thing I was talking about earlier. It's really easy not to prioritize this kind of thing, because if you're always forward moving, closing a loop is sort of that final finishing step. So I spent the last week of this quarter closing big loops. I dumped it all out of my brain. I wrote it all down. And then I went through and I said, what are things I can do right now today? I'm not going to do anything else but close some of these loops. And maybe I'll do them somewhat poorly, but at least I'm going to get these taken care of and mark them off the list. And I'll tell you what, it is so refreshing. So I like using this quarterly review as an opportunity to kind of give yourself some space around those daily tasks and the constant things you're doing, to really be intentional about cleaning the slate for this upcoming quarter. That's the other really great thing. Like, we can set a clear stake in the ground of where we've gotten to. And then we can say, all right, I'm going to clear everything out. We're going to close all these loops. We're going to give myself a fresh mental canvas to move forward into the next quarter with. So that's just like a fun thing that, that might be something you relate to, but I have found it to be very helpful. I'll be honest with you, there's one loop that isn't closed, and it's starting to get heavier and heavier and more annoying. So hopefully I do that soon. I mean, I'm the one in control. I'll do it. But yeah, freeing up that mental bandwidth for new opportunities as the new quarter approaches, very important. And then let's end this. I had a few more things on the outline to discuss, but this one is really important to me because, like I said before, you're in this for the long run, right? Like you're in this business for the long haul, and you know it's going to take a lot of work. You know it's going to take a lot of resilience. You're going to come up against the walls that you have built yourself, all of this, but hold on. Okay, so let's talk about the last thing. So if you've closed your loops, you've done all your reviews, you've looked over, the metrics, the numbers, the traffic, the conversations, the goals, expectations, patterns, all of that. Here's where I want you to end with your quarterly review. So let me just tell you a quick story. So my husband used to work for this great company, and every holiday, the management team would have a party, just a nice dinner party. The spouses got to come. It was a great time of celebration. But one thing that always occurred is the owner of this company would inevitably at some point in the night stand up and give these very heartfelt speeches about the contributions and the positive attributes of each of his employees. So it would be, so and so here, we're so glad to have him on the team because of, and then he would speak about that person intimately, how they've contributed, the things they've done well, and how gratitude or grateful the owner was to have them on his team. And it was, at some point he would always tear up, and it was really sweet and heartfelt. And there was one year when I was watching all of this and I thought to myself, wow, I've been a self-employed artist for, it was probably 7 years at that point, and I don't have this kind of community anymore. I don't have these people or this kind of feedback, right? I don't have this feedback. And that comes with the good side where I don't have the feedback that's negative, but I also, you don't get that external feedback about how you're performing, essentially, and the pieces that are really of value or of appreciation. That's the word. So I want you to do that. I want you to create your own acknowledgement and celebrate your progress, your contribution to your business. Document it and write it down and give yourself the space to do it. Like I literally mean it, you guys. Right? Like after you do your whole monthly review, I want you to do a review of yourself and to make sure that the leading emotion or the leading motivation is appreciation and acknowledgement. Because again, you just are in the day to day working, right? You're in the struggle, you're in the weeds, or you're having a great time and it's really fun, but it is all moving so fast. Taking that pause to step back, reflect on your business, both the positives and the negatives, and then to really give yourself a spot of appreciation is huge. So acknowledge your growth, acknowledge the things you've done well, acknowledge what you bring to the team, and say it out loud. Your brain knows that it's not another person saying it, but it will have such a profound impact on how you treat yourself and that resilience factor moving forward. Yeah, it's really important to treat ourselves well while we're in business. It's very challenging, especially if we are trapped in comparison or anything like that. So this is just a really amazing opportunity for you to empower yourself, get to know your numbers, get to know your business in and out, and then really show appreciation for yourself, how far you've come, and the things you bring to it. Because you're a solopreneur, and if you send them to me, I will read them out loud for you. So feel free to do that. I would love nothing more than to do that for you. Or you can ask a friend or a loved one to do it too. I don't think I've ever done that. I've considered it, but I can do it myself and it feels just as good. But I have fantasized about like in-person events if we ever all get together and go over stuff like this. Like I think that will definitely be a part of it because I think it's really important. Okay, so all of this too, it's really valuable to do all of this reviewing and going through the numbers and all of it. It's very valuable to do it just by itself. Try to put it in a place that allows you to remember where it exists. And so next quarter, at the end of next quarter, you can do it again, and then you can compare the two and then use this review for better planning. Maybe you need to adjust your expectations based on your patterns. Maybe you need to really plan out better which days you're going to work in your studio. Maybe you need to pull out the calendar and really mark off your studio days so that you don't get sucked into a bunch of social media creation or whatever because you owe it to someone or whatever it is. You need to put that creative work first or something. So you put it all on the calendar, right? Maybe it helps you plan to double down on what's working. All right, I see that I'm making great revenue off of this. Revenue is amazing for your business. Remember, you are more of a person than your business shows. So that means your business doesn't always have to show every single piece of you as an artist. You can have revenue generating art and put that forward and make that the main thing you talk about while you also make your own art or you make different art at home. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think as artists, a lot of us get hung up on this kind of idea that we have to be full, like our business has to fully represent us and our full creative breadth. And that's not, it's great if it can, it's great if it does, but it's okay also if it's just your business is here to make you money, right? Like it's here to have an impact and positive and share and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, a business is for making money and revenue so that it can support you and your life. Take yourself out for a special dinner with your husband or your wife or your, partner because you just finished a great 3 months of the year. It's worth celebrating. If you have revenue coming in, you can do things like that. You can hire the people you want to hire. You can pay for the courses you want to learn about. You can upgrade some of your software. You can get a better camera. You can get a better easel. Like generating revenue is your business's job. So let it do its job. Okay. So use this review as a way to help you do that. Feel like I just went on a tangent. Let me check the outline to make sure I didn't miss anything else. Yeah, just honor yourself and your whole artist self. And I guess like last thoughts, spend a whole day doing it. You guys, this is a lot of mental work. When I did this, it took me a full day and then a whole nother day to get everything in my head for this next quarter out of my head and onto a paper and anywhere it felt organized. It took 2 days. So, it can be really hard sometimes to spend 2 days doing something like this when you think, oh, I should be doing this and this and this, but it's worth it. So give it to yourself, okay? Would love to hear about next quarter plans. I think I will. So my plan is to create a more full episode to follow this one about the actual planning of your business for the next 90 days. So I will do that and I'll follow up on that. So between now and the next release of the episode a week from now, or sometimes 2 weeks from now, and just to be honest, spend some time, take a day, take 3 days. And in one of those days, do your reflection. And in 2 of those days, close some loops. And again, email me. Feel free to email me the appreciation speeches you have for yourself about you as an artist and everything. All right. Well, I think that about covers it. And yeah. Hey, you guys, before I go, this is really important to me. I'm working super hard on this business, the Artist's Guide to Business. I'm working very hard on it. I feel like, especially with the way things are going in our country right now, with a lot of the nonprofit funding, the grant funding, all of that being so dramatically and quickly reduced, we are losing some institutional support of the arts. And when I started the Artist's Guide to Business, a big part of it was about empowering artists to earn money without those institutions. And not because I don't like them or not, I don't have anything against them. It's just that they can't serve everyone. And I believe everyone has a chance, or everyone deserves a chance to earn money with their art. So that's why I started this business, and it's proving to be even more important these days. And it's also super important for you to take care of yourself. Radical self-love is a sense of resistance. Making sure that you are safe is a form of resistance. Earning money in your business, building a better life for you and your family, that is all really important. And I don't want that to get lost in the noise of everything happening. So it's really important to me. The thing that I'm running up against is this business is not easy to get started. I am going more for the lower ticket priced items, digital trainings, et cetera, with a higher quantity of outreach. It's not an easy model to follow, but a lot of people who I can serve and who I want to help cannot necessarily spend $3,000 on coaching or, these really high ticket programs and projects, which eventually I'm sure I'll open one, but we're not there yet. Anyway, all I'm trying to say is that I'm putting a lot of time into the Artist's Guide to Business, and I'm really glad to be doing it. And I've really appreciated meeting a lot of you and getting to know your conversations. If you are benefiting from this at all, please share it with people. Please write. This is the biggest thing you could do for me. Go to Apple Podcasts or any podcast player you use, but Apple Podcasts is the biggest one. Please go on there and write a review. It helps people know if you've gotten any help from this. It helps legitimize it. It gives it credibility because there is obviously a lot of, just there's a wide variety of content out there, and not all of it is necessarily helpful. Maybe this doesn't help you, but I assume it does because you're still listening to me rambling after whatever 45 minutes. But that would really help me, you guys. I really need all the help I can get at growing this, helping people trust it, and at creating a very credible, valuable resource for artists in the United States at this point. Everyone else, you guys, I hope you're having a better time. I'm not gonna get into all that, but so please leave me a review about this podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever, and share it. Share these resources with your artists groups, your local community groups, like whatever your kind of networks are, because everyone we reach and everyone we get to talk to, it will make this Artist's Guide to Business stronger. I want this business to be way bigger than me. So yeah, please help me. Okay, you guys, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.